welcome to our Global Livestream event. If you're here today, we want to thank you for joining us as we're in conversation with Nobel Peace Prize laureate Shirin Ebadi. Thank you for joining us on this panel. Today we have none other than our laureate herself, and we also have the director of the film based on her life, Dawn Engle, and two special guests, Rumi Natanzi and Dr. Shade Dashti. Today we're going to have an amazing and riveting conversation, including your input in the comments below. So while you're watching, please engage with us. Share this video, share with your friends, tag people below so that they'll join us live as we have this discussion. We also have some questions coming up later in the show from our youth around the world. So today's going to be an exciting time. If you're not already following us on our social networks, now's the time to do so. If you haven't checked out our website, go ahead and head to www.billionacts.org and check out our page for Until We Are Free. This campaign is about bringing awareness to the voices and the activism that's happening on the ground right now in Iran. We need your help. We need people to host screenings, write blogs, create reflection videos, post online, share with their friends, because more awareness raises more consciousness, and more consciousness will help us to shift the narrative and the impact of politics that's happening right now in Iran. Let's support our brothers and sisters globally as they fight for human rights and women's rights. At this event, you'll be able to hear directly from Shirin Ebadi herself and learn more about what's going on with her work, Iran, and how you can get involved. If you stick around to the end, I'll give more detailed information on where you can find your own place in our campaign. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Share this live and have a great time. Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our Global Livestream event. In honor and appreciation of your time, I want to thank you and give you a round of applause for joining us. We are here today with an amazing panel of amazing women. Firstly, I want to introduce each of them, and I'm going to pass it over to our co-founder of PeaceJam and the director of Until We Are Free, Dawn Engle. So the first person on our list today that I'm going to introduce is Dawn Engle. As I said, she's the co-founder of PeaceJam. She is an amazing woman with an amazing spirit. She's been key in this campaign, this amazing push that we've been having. Dawn, I'm happy to have you. Please introduce yourself.
Well, hello. It's great to see you. It's great to see everyone here joining us on this global conversation. I have to say, it's been such an honor to work with Nobel Peace Prize winner Shirin Ebadi at this crucial moment, really a very crucial moment in time. And we're very excited that we are able to be here with you today, and that you get to be in this conversation with Shirin Ebadi, and learning more about the film and how you can use the film in other ways that you can help support the cause. I am the director of the film. I am also the writer of the film, and it is a powerful film. It's won many awards around the world. People from every continent have seen this film now, and it keeps winning Best Documentary awards because it's just a very powerful statement of the struggle for women's rights, and specifically about what's happening in Iran right now. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to say is welcome, and I'm thrilled to be here and on this panel. And I have the opportunity to introduce the Nobel Peace Prize winner. Is that correct?
Yes, you do. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Okay, this is great. So Shirin Ebadi, ever since I met her, I've been wanting to make this film because this woman is extraordinary. She's incredibly passionate. She's incredibly strong. She doesn't stop. She doesn't give up. She's very tenacious, and she's brilliant. She has a brilliant legal mind. She was the first woman to be appointed judge in the history of Iran. She is somebody who is so soulful and just dedicated to the cause. That's all I can say. When you ask me about Shirin Ebadi, I can't think of anybody who I admire more because of her strength and courage and brilliance. So please, let's introduce Shirin Ebadi to all of you, and so thrilled Shirin, that you're here to join us today.
Thank you, Dawn, for that amazing introduction. So if we can have Shirin come forward so that we can have her remarks.
خانم عبادی
بله
شروع کنی شما.
بله من هم سلام میکنم و خوش آمد میگم به کسانی که این برنامه رو میبینن و بسیار ممنونم هستم از اینکه این جلسه رو ترتیب دادید و به من اجازه صحبت داده میشه و من آماده پاسخگویی به تمام سوالات حضار هستم.
I also greet everyone and welcome everyone who has joined this program. I want to thank you and specifically the program that has invited me to be here to speak and also to respond to any question that anyone may have.
و میخوام همینجا تشکر کنم از دان کارگردان و تهیه کننده این فیلم که با چه زحماتی و با چه دقتی این فیلم رو تهیه کرده و باعث شده که از طریق این فیلم مردمی که این فیلم رو میبینن بهتر در وضعیت ایران رو متوجه بشن.
And I also want to specifically thank Dawn Engle, who is the producer and the director of this film. She has put a lot into this, and we have worked together on this film. And what she has done is to bring attention to people all over the world about what's going on in Iran. When they watch this movie, they will understand what is really going on in Iran.
شما میدانید که این بعد از سپتامبر 2022 یک جنبش خیلی بزرگی علیه حکومت در ایران شروع شد و با دیدن این فیلم متوجه میشید که چرا مردم این چنین همه علیه حکومت یک صدا میگویند ما این حکومت رو نمیخوایم. برای اینکه من فقط یک نفر هستم، اما اون چی که بر سر من آمد بسیار از انسانها گرفتار ظلم حکومت هستند.
So we all know that there is a movement right now in Iran which started in September of 2022, and people took to the streets. By watching this movie, you will see that, yes, I'm only one person, but all of the people who have taken to the streets are against the government for what's going on in Iran. You will get a better understanding of how the government treats people.
و در حقیقت با نوشتن کتاب آنتیل ویار فری من فقط نمیخوام که سرگذشت خودم رو بگم، بلکه شما با خوندن این کتاب و این فیلم متوجه میشوید که حکومتی که با برنده جایزه صلح نوبلش که حقوقدان هم هست، قوانین هم بلده و به تمام بلندگوهای بین‌المللی هم دسترسی داره این کار رو میکنن. بنابراین تصور کنید که با یک دانشجوی جوان که دستگیر میشه به خاطر یک مقاله یا خبرنگارانی که دستگیر میشن یا فعالین سیاسی که شهرت من رو هم ندارن وقتی که دستگیر میشن با چه خشونتی رفتار میشه.
So this book is not just a biography of my life. By reading this book, you will all see that if the government treats the Nobel Peace Prize winner, who is also an attorney, who knows the laws in Iran and international laws, a person who has access to all the microphones in the world, and who can talk about what's going on in Iran, if they treat me the way they have treated me, that you will read in the book, how are they going to treat a young student, a young broadcaster, a journalist, or any other person who talks and opens their mouth against the government of Iraq.
و به هر حال خوشحالم که از طریق این فیلم تعداد بیشتری در جریان ایران قرار میگیرند.
I'm very glad that by watching this movie, more people will understand what's going on in Iran.
Thank you so much, Shirin, for this remark and for starting us off on this panel discussion. Everything that you said is very, very poignant and very timely. We are aware that this is a serious issue, and we're happy that we're able to gather today to bring awareness not only to you and the work that you've done, but the people in Iran and the people on the ground right now who are still fighting to be heard, to be seen. So we're so happy again to have everyone here. Once again, my name is Senora Elena Eduard. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm your moderator for today. And I've already introduced our first two panelists, Dawn Engle and Shirin Ebadi herself. Now I get to introduce Shade Dashti and Rumi Natananzi. Shade Dashti is an associate professor in civil, environmental, and architectural engineering at the University of Colorado Boulder. She also directs a college-funded interdisciplinary research theme titled RISE, Resilient Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. Rumi Natananzi will be a fourth-year undergraduate student in August at the University of Colorado Boulder, continuing her studies in leadership and community engagement, ethnic studies, and geography. Staunchly rooted in human rights and justice considerations, Natananzi drives constantly to examine the entities in intersectional and critical ways to propel her activism, her academics, and her personal goals. Please welcome Shade Dashti and Rumi Natananzi. Hello. Hi, welcome to the both of you. I'm so happy to see both of your faces. Thank you so much for taking up this opportunity and joining us in this conversation. I want to pass it first over to Shade to just give a brief moment to introduce yourself. I've already let the audience know who you are, but please tell us, who you are as well and what your connections are to this panel and what you're looking forward to from today's conversation.
Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in this world. It's truly a pleasure and an honor to be here together with Dr. Ebadi, dear Miss Ershadi, Dawn, Rumi, and Senora. I want to thank Senora for organizing this panel, for meeting with us multiple times to arrange the details and to get the word out on this incredibly powerful movie. As way of background, I have been teaching at the University of Colorado Boulder for the past 12 years, now as an associate professor. But I grew up in Tehran, Iran, and left Iran after finishing high school. And I remain strongly connected to the events, and I draw a lot of inspiration and energy from what is happening there. Now, in terms of my connection, Dawn reached out to me and my husband after a radio interview that we had in the aftermath of Mahsa Jina Amini's murder last year to ask if we could show the documentary Until We Are Free on our campus at University of Colorado Boulder. We were overjoyed and were able to get support from our provost to physically bring Dr. Ebadi and Ms. Ershadi to our campus for a wonderful event in April this past year. The movie and the conversation that followed with Dr. Ebadi and her presence, authenticity, and strength of character had such a profound impact on my life personally and also Rumi's life, she will tell you herself, as well as those of many of our community members, faculty and staff, as well as public from all backgrounds who attended from the Denver metro area were so profoundly moved by the honesty and courage of Dr. Ebadi, as well as the strength of the conversation that followed after showing the movie. That event made a deep mark, and I'm personally forever grateful, especially in view of what is happening in Iran right now. That is a revolutionary movement that's led by women.
Yes, thank you so much for that introduction and that little bit of context and information. I'm really, really happy to have you. We're honored to have you and your expertise in the room. And now I'm going to ask Rumi to join us in the conversation. Please share a little background on yourself, your connections, and what you're looking forward to in this conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to everyone for being here today. Just to echo what Shide said a bit, I'm so pleased and honored to be with you all and to have been asked to speak on this panel. I want to thank you so much, Senora, for your dedication and thoroughness in preparation and execution and meeting with both Shide and I, Dr. Dashti and I, as well as all of the other inner workings of the PeaceJam family who continue to work so hard. I want to thank Dawn Engle for bringing this story to a larger platform. I want to thank wonderful Shirin Ebadi for the important work she does in facilitating this conversation, and for Dr. Ebadi for being here and her courageous activism and brilliance and unrelenting fire in continuing to fight for the people of Iran and human rights considerations everywhere. So in terms of my connection, I'm a student at the University of Colorado Boulder, and my father is Iranian. So my Persian identity has been a large part of my life. And especially in the past year, I've found a new connection to my Persian interests, and also through my activism has really propelled me into becoming more aware of the history and politics and current situation in Iran. When I was asked to facilitate the Q&A with Dr. Dashti and Ms. Irshadi and Dr. Ebadi after the screening of Until We Are Free, it was such a wonderful opportunity for me to speak to somebody and hear firsthand what working in a field like this is truly like, being in a situation like this, and truly dedicating the amount of selflessness and the amount of true grit and determination that Dr. Ebadi has shown and continues to show through her work is something that is not always present to someone, especially a young person, but also somebody who, based on my positionality being here in the United States, not, understanding these events in Iran or worldwide as they happen from an isolated standpoint the best that I can, but hearing the perspective from someone who has actually done the work and who is currently involved intimately in that conflict, or in those considerations, was truly eye-opening. And especially as a budding activist, the dedication shown through Dr. Ebadi's actions and the pursuit of human rights and equity was extremely inspiring for me to see as a reminder of the power of the collective, the importance of perseverance in the face of insurmountable indifference, brutality, and disregard, and the importance of courage in moments of grave injustice and systematic oppression and inequity. So thank you so much for having me today. I'm very, very honored to be here with all of you today.
Thank you, Rumi. You're brilliant. We're happy to have you as well. I want to give Dr. Dashti an opportunity to speak on her reflections on the film. You mentioned a little bit on your end, Rumi, so if you want to add at the end, you can add as well. But Shide, please let us know, in terms of the film Until We Are Free, that is directed by Dawn Engle, that features and, is centering the life of Shirin Ebadi, Dr. Shirin Ebadi. Can you tell us your reflections on the film and, what us as the audience can get from your perspective today, being on this panel?
Sure. To me, the movie is a raw, honest, and really a beautiful account of the life of a courageous woman or women. There are multiple outstanding activists who are showcased in the movie, who gave so much to fight patriarchy in its ugliest and strongest form, a religious dictatorship in the Islamic Republic. It serves as an invitation for action, inspiring all of us, really. There are those of us who are afraid to be active, and for those, it reminds us of what we have to lose and also the power of unity and sisterhood, the knowledge and wisdom and the sacrifices of those like Dr. Ebadi and their experiences that we can build on and learn from. And then there are those of us who are already heavily active and involved. And for those, I think the movie serves as a reminder that we are not alone and how we can strengthen our movement globally through unity. I remember while watching the movie, I tried to make a connection to my own experiences over the past 40 years, that it is really a story of many of us. I could feel that connection. The struggle of the Iranian women for reforming the unjust laws over many years, the million signature campaign, the Green Movement, our hope for rebuilding after the war, and even after Khatami, the contrast of the extremely ugly with the extremely beautiful in a land of contradictions, the poetry, culture, landscape versus the rule of religious dictators. That is the culmination of, in my opinion, the highest levels of corruption and patriarchy. And the connection to our lived experiences and memories was powerful for many of us who are connected to Iran, while educational for the non-Iranians, bringing sufficient background on history, culture, and our common humanity, which is incredibly important. And that's very unique, that the way the movie connected to both sides of the spectrum, Iranians who could resonate and the non-Iranians who don't know anything about Iran's history. I found that very unique for a movie to be able to pull off.
Thank you so much for saying that, for sharing that. For those of you who are watching who have maybe not seen the film, please take Dr. Shade's testimony. The film is an amazing work, and it does such a great job. Even if you're someone who's never heard of this history, you've never heard of Dr. Ebadi, you never even knew about the sort of human rights activism that's happening right now in Iran. The film is very introductory while also being a compelling storytelling device. It's a vehicle that really will take you far. So Rumi, can you tell us from your perspective, your reflections on the film, and how maybe people who are younger, college age students who might think, well, I don't really know why I should invest in this cause or in the film. Like, should I even take my time to watch this? It's not necessarily what we find on Netflix all the time, right? It's a different kind of film. Can you tell us from your perspective?
Sure. Yeah. Just to echo the beautiful sentiments that Shide just expressed, I was taken by the amount of, well, firstly, just people who came to see the film, both with Iran, a connection to Iran, and also those who didn't have an intimate connection, and especially the young people, the amount of young people that were present. And I think this serves as such a wonderful reminder of the power of the collective, regardless of a multitude of perhaps seemingly separating things that separate us, and the way that this can be and should be truly viewed as intergenerational and intersectional. Yeah, I just was really pleased to see that it was, people were hopefully able to make a human-to-human connection regardless of the geographic difference and positionality, seeing these people and activists and drawing commonalities between maybe not explicitly our experiences and specific events that have happened in our lives, but in the small things that drive us human beings every day, and especially those of us who have incredible justice-oriented positions in this world. And so, to your question about youth, I think it's very important in this moment to pay attention to the ways in which there is a divide between generations, and acknowledging that and seeing it for what it is, but also understanding that despite our differences, we are experiencing societal norms and systemic structures that are continually perpetuated, regardless of a changing world, a changing demographic, and changing mindsets in a lot of ways. And I think particularly understanding, speaking personally, understanding the privilege and positionality that I bring to the conversation, and how although I am Iranian American, I will never truly understand the intimate experiences of Iranian youth in Iran. And I think a lot of youth in the United States will never really truly understand this. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't continue to be involved and to keep an awareness and an understanding and a drive to understand more, because regardless of our differences, there are human connections and similarities that that go beyond any difference that we might have. And specifically in a university setting, when we have access to an immense amount of resources, and the opportunities that we have are beyond to speak to incredible thinkers, to go to incredible events and talks. I think that a conscious choice to not involve yourself, or to choose maybe a side of intentional ignorance or indifference, is no longer something that is permissible in my eyes, and the eyes. I mean, these are real people who need real attention, and not necessarily a westernized sense of right and wrong or intervention, but still attention from the perspective of a youth leader, a youth activist, a youth individual in general.
Thank you, Rumi. So I'm so happy that I've gotten to have both of you introduced to us, to our audience, and we're going to go back now and bring everybody together for this panel so we can move forward to our panel discussion. Thank you again to Dr. Shade and Rumi, and I'm looking forward now to bringing up Dawn, who, remember, is the director of the film, and our woman of the hour, Dr. Shirin Ebadi. Please join us. And we also, of course, have our translator for today, Shirin Ebadi. Thank you as well for joining us today and for doing the work that you're doing so that everybody can participate and get the opportunity to hear from the doctor and the lawyer herself. So now that we're all together, I think it may be important for those of us who are joining live who don't have any background to just be a little bit contextualized to what we're talking about and why it matters. So I want to pitch our first question and moment before we even get into our panel discussion to Shirin, and to ask for a contextualization of what is happening right now in Iran, and those of us who are watching live or maybe are coming in for the first time, what do you want us to walk away knowing today?
خب خانم عبادی، اولین سوالی که میخوام از شما من بپرسم اینه که امروز در ایران چی میگذره و افرادی که الان دارن این برنامه رو نگاه میکنن چه برداشتی از اونچه که امروز در ایران میگذره داشته باشن؟
به خاطر خشونت‌های بی حد و حصر حکومت و به خاطر دستگیری‌های گسترده‌ای که انجام شده و همچنین حداقل 7 نفر رو اعدام کردن به خاطر شرکت در یک تظاهرات مسالمت‌آمیز، نوع اعتراض مردم تغییر کرده. یعنی اعتراض تمام نشده، نوعش رو عوض کردن.
Okay, so what's going on in Iran now is that as a result of the violence and the real crucial violence that happened in Iran during the demonstrations, numerous arrests were made. And for what we know, 7 people have been executed for having participated in these rallies. That's what their only crime was. People have changed the manner that they are now opposing the government. It is not that it has come to an end. It has not. It is just that the manner has changed.
به عنوان مثال در این جنبش حتی دختران دبیرستانی یعنی 14-15 سال هم آمدن به خیابان و همراه پدر مادرشون فریاد می‌زدن که ما این حکومت رو نمیخواهیم برای اینکه آینده ای نداریم و به تلافی این کار برای اینکه حکومت دختران دبیرستانی رو ساکت بکنه با گاز سمی به مدارسی که اعتراض میکردن زد و بچه ها رو مسموم کرد که کار تعدادی از اونها به بیمارستان کشید، بستری شدن و طبق خبرهای غیر رسمی یک دانش آموز هم به علت همین گازها کشته شد.
So to give you an example of what is going on right now in Iran, during the demonstrations, many young women, what I mean is like high school students, 14, 15-year-olds, took to the streets with their parents. And they were chanting against the government that we don't want this government. And the government was extremely unhappy with the fact that younger people had taken to the streets. So what they did was they would bring toxic gases and explode them in high schools. As a result, many young girls who attended the high schools were poisoned by these toxic gases and were hospitalized. There is a report, although it's an unofficial report, that even one young girl has died as a result of this toxic poisoning.
برای متفرق کردن جمعیت گلوله های پلاستیکی با شلیک میشد به سمت مردم. با هر شلیک بین 7 تا 9 گلوله ساچمه‌ای پرتاب میشد و اینها اکثرا صورت معترضین رو نشانه میگرفتن. این باعث شد تعداد زیادی از مردم کور بشن و یا حتی لااقل یک چشمشون رو از دست بدن. این تعداد انقدر بالا بود که انجمن چشم پزشکی ایران اعتراض کرد که آقا این همه نابینا درست کردین شما، فکرشو نکردین؟ به چه مناسبت فقط به صورت شلیک میشه؟
So one other example that I want to give you is that the government, in order to disperse the crowd, started using plastic bullets, something like pellet bullets. And what they did was they would shoot people in their faces. As a result, many people have been disfigured and a number have lost their sights because they would just shoot. And many people, received it in their eyes. This was very prevalent to the extent that the Association of Ophthalmologists in Iran opposed the manner and said, why is it that all these people with injury to their eyes are coming to the hospitals? And why doesn't the government think that they are blinding people and creating all these blind people or as a result of their action and reaction to the demonstrations?
این فقط دو نمونه از سرکوب حکومت بود و به همین دلیل مردم تصمیم گرفتن که اعتراضاتشون رو به شیوه دیگری بیان کنن. الان شبها در تاریکی از اکثر خونه ها صدای فریاد میاد که ما این حکومت رو نمیخواهیم و اعتراضات خیابانی هم هست، ولی کن به صورت درخواست معیشتیه. یعنی میگویند حقوق ما کمه کارگرها میگن حقوق ندادین، بازنشسته ها شکایت دارن که حقوقشون کمه و به طور متوسط هفته 4 یا 5 روز ما شاهد چنین تظاهراتی هستیم. ضمن اینکه در برخی از نقاط روزهای جمعه بعد از نماز جمعه مردم میان تو خیابون و اعتراض میکنن و شعارشون یک چیزه: مرگ بر این حکومت که انقدر به ما ستم کرده.
So these were two examples that I gave you, and now you understand how people are struggling and fighting against this government. But this doesn't mean that there is an end to the demonstrations at night. When it's dark, people take to the roofs and they chant their mottos regarding not wanting this government. Also, people who are really fed up with the inflation in Iran, they take to the streets and they talk about the fact that they cannot provide for their families, that their salaries are low. The retired people all have demands about their salaries being raised, and it is all a matter of life and existence in Iran, which has become impossible and very, very difficult for ordinary people. Besides the fact that usually on Fridays, when there are Friday prayers, and after the prayers, people who have come together for the prayers take to the streets and they chant the motto that they don't want this government and death or an end to this dictatorship and government.
Thank you for that response. Wow. So thank you for contextualizing for us what's happening politically. I think it's important for the audience who's listening in to understand the gravity of the situation at hand and the human rights violations that we have at hand, and why it's important that we're gathering for this conversation, because awareness is the first step, but really we want to encourage and maybe embolden some folk here who are listening to turn their eyes, from looking away and looking towards the problem, so that we can begin to work together, support those of you who are in Iran, those of us who are outside of Iran, and even those of us who are maybe even hearing it for the first time today, that we can now see what the issues are and begin to put more than thoughts and prayers towards this, right? We want to really see some change happen. So thank you for contextualizing it, and thank you for your service and the work that you've done across these years to really bring this to the forefront. So I want to, in that spirit, ask a question of our professor who's on the panel today. I want to ask Dr. Shirin Ebadi a question. Since we're talking about the international implications of this movement, and also of the film that we're talking about today, Until We Are Free, Dr. Shirin Ebadi, from your perspective as a professor, how important is it for the international community to understand the historical and cultural context of Iran while engaging in discussions about human rights and women's rights across the country and in our own country?
Sure, and I can talk more in the context of the American public for the most part. That is, I think from my perspective, the American public has a critical role to play in relation to Iran, even though they may not recognize their power and their responsibility. First, once the international community, and especially the American public, understands the historical context of the recent events in Iran and the role played by the US government in overturning, for example, Mossadegh, or even later, even supporting Ayatollah Khomeini through direct talks that were recently declassified by the CIA. And once Americans learn more about Iran's cultural context and contributions to world philosophy, art, and science, which was partly covered in the movie in a beautiful and brief manner, they may find inspiration and a sense of responsibility to join the movement resistance and lend a helping hand. to their Iranian sisters and brothers. Given that the public in the US has the power to put pressure on their government officials, particularly Congress, but also the White House, and through the White House, the State Department, once educated and informed, they could demand for a stronger and a more transparent approach in support of human and women's rights in Iran. I believe that matters, but it needs persistence and a campaign to inform and educate or to mobilize. I also want to add that it is really not just a one-sided equation. To give a hand to Iranians in their fight against patriarchy with nothing in return for the Americans. The patience, boldness, persistence, courage, and creativity. Some acts that Dr. Ebadi just talked about. The creativity of the women's rights movement in Iran, the unity right now in what's happening across the gender spectrum, race, ethnicity, religion, and class, and the strong and beautiful connection to environmental justice and the labor movement, in fact, in a progressive and rhizomatic cultural awakening with no single leader, has a lot to teach us here in the US. This is particularly important, let's remember, in view of the direction in which we are heading here in terms of women's rights, bodily autonomy, racial justice, and severe environmental injustices and catastrophes that are happening right here in the United States. So there are incredibly useful lessons to be learned here that could help women's and human rights activists, as well as the planet, at a global scale.
Thank you so much for that response and for bringing some light to what this means for us here. I think that's important because a lot of the times, even with our own domestic sort of fights for justice, people can sort of wonder where they fit into the equation and what we can really do. And so I think it's important to underscore that we do have some power, we do have a voice, we do have an ability to engage in this conversation. And later on, we'll talk about, how do we do that without imposing our own sort of Western ideals onto the situation or becoming sort of, Western saviors in the context of this conversation. But I think that it's important, as we were bringing up, there's a creativity to this movement. There's a creativity amongst the women, and creativity and art and using your voice in various ways can bring to light these things, rather than not just marching in the street, but we can also create things like, for example, the film that we're talking about today, Until We Are Free, is a documentary that was created as a point of shedding a light on what's happening and bringing this knowledge forward. And so I'm seated here today because of that film, because I was able to watch and engage with it. And I want to ask Dawn, who is present with us today, who's the director, for a little bit of insight, because with this context, it's incredibly difficult to share stories and to use our voice in spaces where people will try to silence us. So Dawn, what were some of the most significant challenges you faced in documenting this complex and impactful story? How did you navigate, putting together a story for someone like Shirin in a political context like Iran right now, where people are actively being thwarted in terms of your creativity? And how did you use your creativity, as a woman and as a director to bring the story forward?
Well, I have to say that I have incredible mentors who are always showing me the way. One of my mentors is Shirin Ebadi. Dr. Ebadi, you are extraordinary. You're exceptional. Your personal story is so powerful. But she laid the way for the film by writing 3 books. The 3 books that Shirin Ebadi wrote and published, and which have been read around the world, really were the basis. And my personal relationship with her, having gotten to sit at her feet and learn from her, and hearing her speak, watching her work around the world. What she has to say is really important so that people can understand the history and how it affects every person. And her focus just stays pure on really what her father taught her, which was that boys and girls can be equal. He treated, her father was a feminist, so was her mother, but her father treated her the same as her brother, and totally supported her in her studies and totally supported her in becoming a judge. And she knows that this is right and this is the way it should be, and it was that way for a while. And why has it gone away? For me, when I hear Shirin Ebadi's story, for me it's a cautionary tale, because you can have rights and then they can be taken away, and so quickly, like in the blink of an eye. And I think for people around the world right now, there are forces that are trying to take away rights from women that we fought for a very, very long time. And there are forces that are trying to take those rights away. So when we look at Shirin Ebadi and the women of Iran and what they're doing to organize the 1 million signatures campaign, everything that they did to create a movement without any one person as the leader, but it was the people just saying, this is right. And why does it have to be different? Why can't we be equal? It's such a basic question, and they have gone about it with incredible courage and also creativity. But many of the leaders of the campaign, like Shirin Ebadi, was personally attacked. Everything that she owned was taken away from her. They attacked her husband, jailed him. Her family, other leaders of the campaign are currently in jail. It's horrific, really. Even the Nobel Peace Prize itself was confiscated. It's that there would be no protection. But what the film shows in the end is the ability of courageous people to create change. And so it's very hopeful. And that's another thing I learned from Shirin Ebadi is she really believes that this change is going to come. And she really believes that democracy will come to Iran because of these women who've come together over many, many decades to work for change. And she really believes that she will be returning to Iran herself. So I don't know, Shirin, I would like to ask you if you want to say a few words here, because I keep talking about everything I've learned from you, but maybe you can say a few words about this too.
خب خانم عبادی، من الان راجع به اون چی که من از شما یاد گرفتم صحبت کردم، ولی میخوام از شما خواهش بکنم که خودتونم راجع به این کتاب و راجع به این مسئله که حقوق زنها در حال حاضر در توسط نیروهای مختلف در سراسر دنیا در خطره و شما اینو در ایران تجربه کردین که حقوقی که داشتین رو از دست دادین، یعنی ازتون گرفتن، و ما الان داریم میبینیم در سراسر دنیا حقوقی که زنها سالها براش مبارزه کردن رو دارن ازشون میگیرن یا محدود میکنن. نظر شما رو در این مورد بخوام بدونم.
دموکراسی و حقوق بشر رو من تشبیه میکنم به یک گلدان زیبا. وقتی که شما یک گلدانی میخرید و توی اتاقتون میذارید، هر روز بایستی نورش رو تنظیم کنید، یه مقدار معینی بهش آب بدید تا شاداب بمونه. نمیتونید فقط در ماه یک روز بهش سر بزنید، آب زیادی بهش بدید، بگید خب اندازه یک ماه بهش آب دادم دیگه. اینو ولش کنید. این گل پژمرده میشه. حقوق بشر و دموکراسی هم مثل همینه. احتیاج به مراقبت دائم داره. برخی تصور میکنن وقتی چیزی رو به دست آوردن، حقی رو به دست آوردن، تا ابد اون رو خواهند داشت. این اشتباهه. بایستی ازش محافظت کنیم.
So, I want to give you another example. When I think about democracy and human rights, I usually think about a plant, a beautiful plant with a nice flower or just a beautiful plant. that you buy and you just bring it home. If you think that I'm going to water it a lot today and forget about it for like a month or so, there will be enough water. That plant is going to die. The thing is that when we buy a plant, we need to put it in the right place, to think about the light, to water it every day, to take care of it every day. So that's how democracy and human rights are to me. I always think that we need to take care of it, meaning we have to pursue the matter, meaning that if we have a right that we have gained, we have to work on protecting that, on keeping that right. We can't just think, okay, we got this right and we're going to forget about it. No one's going to take it away from us. No, that's not the case. They may take it away from us.
خیلی ها فکر میکنن که اگه برن پای صندوق رای و رای بدن به کاندیدی که میخواهن، خب دیگه وظیفهشون رو انجام دادن و دیگه تمومه. نه، این اشتباهه. شما وقتی که به کسی رای میدید بایستی مراقب کلیه تصمیمهاش و زندگیش در هر روز باشید و ازش حساب بگیرید که این چه تصمیمی گرفته، چطور شده. اگر بی‌اعتنا باشید اون وقت یه دفعه متوجه میشید که چه حقوقی رو از دست دادید. یه نمونهش رو من میتونم در کشور شما مسئله سخت جنین رو بگم. یه زمانی اساساً این مسئله حل شده بود، کسی راجع به اینکه زن آزاده یا آزاد نیست تقریباً بحثی نبود، برای که همه قبول کرده بودن. اما حالا تبدیل شده به یه معضلی برای اینکه مراقبت نکردیم. ایران هم همینطور بود. ما حقوقی داشتیم. واقعا فکر نمی کردیم به این راحتی بشه همه حقوقمون از دست بدیم و اگر می دانستیم بیشتر دقت می کردیم.
Another issue is when one goes to the ballot box. It's not, our duty is not just limited to voting for someone, but we need to pursue that matter. We need to see what that person is doing. We need to hold them accountable for what they're doing and the way they are performing. And so if we forget about that, the same thing can happen. One example that I can give you in this regard is like the abortion rights in America. For years and years, it was always thought that women had the right, that it was the women's body and they had the right. But then suddenly it changed. Many people came and decided, or the court decided that that was not the case. In Iran, the same thing happened. We thought that we had a lot of rights, that we did have rights, and they took it away from us. That is because we didn't keep our eyes and supervise what our people, what our elected officials were doing.
نمونه دیگر کشور لهستانه. من ماه قبل در کشور لهستان بودم و با فمینیست‌ها اونجا صحبت میکردم و واقعا متوجه شدم که اینها چطور حقوقی که 40 سال قبل داشتن حالا برگشتن عقب و حتی از 40 سال قبل هم عقب‌تر رفتن زنها. این شاید به این دلیل بوده که آنها هم مانند ما مراقبت روزانه نکردن، مبارزه روزانه رو صرف حقوق بشر و مخصوصا حقوق زن نکردن، فقط به مسائل دیگر می پرداختند.
So the other thing that I want to tell you is that I was in Poland a month ago and I spoke to many feminists there. And what I gathered was that women there are losing their rights too when I talk to these people. And what I think the situation is that like us, maybe those women, they didn't supervise what was going on. Meaning that they thought that this was a vested right. They had the right and no one's going to take it away. What I want to say here is that regarding human rights and women's rights, we need to be very careful. We need to fight for our rights, continue the fight, and protect what we have gained.
مسئله دیگر بی‌توجهی نسل جوان است به سیاست. خیلی ها فکر میکنن خب هر کاری بخوان سیاستمدارا میکنن دیگه، کسی حرف ما رو گوش نمیکنه و میکشن کنار، منفعل میشن. این اشتباه بزرگیه. جوانها متحد بشید، خواسته خودتون رو فریاد بزنید، مسلم بدانید که سیاستمدارا مجبورن حرف شما رو گوش کنن. منفعل نشید.
The other issue is that I come across very young people who are not that interested in politics, and they say, okay, politicians are going to do whatever they're going to do. They're not going to listen to us. So they kind of become passive, and they don't take any action. But what I want to say to young people is not to become passive and to take action and be active and follow what's going on in the world.
Thank you so much. There's a couple things I would love to speak to. I'm going to ask just one short follow-up question to Dr. Ebadi before I move from another point that she made to a question for our student activist, Rumi. So Dr. Ebadi, you mentioned democracy being like a plant. A particular plant that I admire when I think about politics is the sunflower. The sunflower is unique in its design because it stretches towards the sun to receive its energy, but in moments where there is no sun, the sunflowers also turn to each other, to look to each other's faces, to receive like energy and share basically resources. So I want to ask you, because you see democracy as a plant, in your own life, what is the sun? What is the thing that you're stretching towards for energy? And when you can't find that resource and that source, what are or who are the sunflowers next to you that you're turning towards? And what can we learn from you in order to continue to be sunflowers ourselves, to water the plant of democracy abroad and in our own, domestic places? How do we then stretch towards the greater sources and then the resources around us?
خانم عبادی، با توجه به اینکه شما راجع به یک گیاه زیبا یا گل صحبت کردین، منم میخوام سوالم رو دور همون مسئله از شما بکنم. من به نظرم میادش که گل آفتابگردون رو در نظر دارم. گل آفتابگردون وقتی که آفتاب هست به روی آفتاب میره و انرژیشو از آفتاب میگیره، ولی که وقتی که آفتاب غروب میکنه این گلای آفتابگردون همه رو به همدیگه میان، جمع میشن و من این برداشت رو دارم که مثل اینه که اینا از همدیگه دارن نیرو میگیرن. من میخوام ببینم برای شما خورشید کی بوده و نوری که به طرفش رفتین و بعد اون گلای آفتابگردونی که دور همدیگه جمع شدن کیا بودن و چجوری شما از اونا نیرو گرفتین و با هم دیگه کار کردین.
خیلی مثال زیبایی زدید. خورشید من اون هدفی بوده که در زندگی داشتم و همیشه دنبال اون هدف بودم و اون چیزی که من ازش نیرو وقتی که خورشید نبوده، یعنی وقتی که کار سخت شد، حقوق ما رو از ما گرفتن، استبداد در کشور ما آمد، من شروع کردم به سازماندهی و من مبتکر و بنیانگذار 3 NGO در کشورم هستم و زیباترین و بهترین خاطراتم در دوران استبداد دینی حاکم بر ایران لحظاتی است که در NGO ما همکاران دور هم میشستیم و با همدیگه برنامه‌ریزی میکردیم که چگونه بایستی فعالیت بکنیم که بتوانیم به آنچه که میخواهیم، یعنی بهبود حقوق بشر در ایران برسیم.
So that was a great example that you gave, and it was a great question. If I want to talk about sunflowers, I have to tell you that my son was my goal in life. which was very important for me. But when things got a little difficult, when our rights were taken away from us, when the dictatorship and a religious dictatorship took effect in Iran, what I did was turning to my colleagues, the same as the flowers do. And I was the person who put together 3 NGOs. So we would get together and talk to each other about the situation, about the rights that had been taken away, about the dictatorship that exists, and how we could work around that.
Thank you so much for that answer, Dr. Abadi. I appreciate it. You also mentioned
ممنون از این جوابی که دادین به من. خیلی متشکرم ازت.
you also mentioned your desire to speak to the youth and to encourage and embolden the youth to not become apathetic about their politics and their places in politics. So I want to ask, Rumi, who is amongst us now, who is a student activist, a question specifically about the youth. Rumi, thank you for being on the panel again. We want to ask you, as Dr. Abadi has stated, there is sometimes a bit of apathy that can happen amongst the youth, or sometimes we can feel just like we're powerless, right? And with the growing divide between maybe Gen Z or millennials to the sort of older generation that has come before us with our current leadership, how do you think that age and politics play out presently in Iran? And how can we begin to heal the divide in terms of generation between the youth and the elders when it comes to political power? And you can speak, of course, from your particular perspective as an Iranian American about what it means to be a youth activist in America and how we can do that kind of work in the States as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. What a wonderful question. So I do think that age and politics play a significant role in this current movement in Iran. So this is a political system that was enacted 44 years ago in 1979. And presently in a country of 89 million people, there's a median age of 33. So half of the population was not even born when the Islamic Republic came into power. They were not the ones who supported overthrowing the Shah, who also was not, I recognize, not a perfect political system, just to get that out there. But they're also not the first to experience the brutalities of the regime, as we've seen through the film, Dr. Abadi's film, and also as Shide spoke to briefly. They are the ones, however, who are dealing in this particular 21st century moment where decades-old oppressions by the Islamic Republic have taken modern forms. Surveillance tactics are heightened, and social media, which is arguably one of the most prominent tools of our generation, and right now is consistently weaponized. And various forms of censorship are continually thwarting potential in Iran in general, and particularly for the youth population. And the access to the outside world, a different world with different solutions, different perspectives, the intersectionality of the individuals who live in Iran is ways of being different and thriving are continually shut down. So, as seen worldwide, fundamental movements for change are continuously stunted by archaic leadership and backward ideas, foundational and intentional ignorances, and from tangible action taking to the impending, current happenings of climate change, radical acts of recognizing and teaching true occurrences of history, even in action by older generations and more conservative lines of thinking, prevent different perspectives from younger generations time and time again. And it propels us into a further disjointed and polarized community and relationships. And, as Dr. Abadi spoke to, it causes a sense of apathy, especially within the young populations. Like, my voice doesn't matter. What can I do? How am I ever going to have an impact within a larger system that is seemingly not interested in what I have to say? And I want to recognize also, by saying this, I'm in no way trying to be ageist, and I recognize that there are a lot of people from different generations and the older generations who have infinite wisdom and integral perspectives that are a considerable part of the way that the world is led and the way that we see various things. But when these ideas directly contradict with the forward movement of societies, it becomes a great issue. So, the question, your wonderful question, how do we bridge the gap between what is conceptualized in their eyes in different perspectives, as the right way to move about things, to rule, the right way for societies to function, and fundamental misguidance and knowledge that is rooted invariably in heteropatriarchal, religiously influenced, dogmatic thinking that's extremely exclusive and fundamentally rooted in inequitable outcomes. And so I feel like this is a question that I grapple with constantly, and always, of course, having understanding of my positionality as an American, and the inherent westernization of my thought and the ways that I move about, conflicts, especially international conflicts. And I think similarly, the viewpoints of those of us in the diaspora, the youth in the diaspora, in addition to student leadership in general, is oftentimes glazed with that lens. But I think if I might offer just, I briefly stated before that young people oftentimes feel like they don't have a voice or don't have power, but I feel it's extremely important to recognize that your perspective in this moment is essential to understanding overall human rights issues, political issues, economic issues, etc., understanding that you have knowledge and you have a unique insight into the way that the world works because of your upbringing, because of who you are, the way that you identify, the communities you've grown up in, that is unlike something that anyone else is able to offer. And even though you might feel like your voice is continually silenced, or perhaps there isn't a platform for your voice to be heard, there are ways in which you can continue the fight for human rights, for advocacy in a multitude of ways, through educating yourself, as well as providing educational opportunities for others, perhaps having difficult conversations with people that you might otherwise not have because they're rooted in disagreement and contentiousness. Yeah, so I guess that's what I would offer as perhaps hope for my generation and others.
Thank you, Rumi. Thank you for serving as an example in this moment by sharing your voice. And I want to actually take the opportunity, because this space is one of the spaces where we're hoping to bridge that divide. We've brought you all together here because of the fact that we want to bridge the gap between the generations and make it that those who are youth can also then learn from those who are our elders, and those who are elders can be inspired by those who are youth. And we wanted this opportunity, this panel, to be a place where youth would have a voice, that we wouldn't just be sitting and having a discussion, but that we would bring people in. So I think it would be a great opportunity right now. Thank you again, Rumi, to just bring those voices into the room right now, and we can have their questions come forward so that the panel, and specifically Dr. Ebadi, could speak to their concerns. So I'm going to ask that we start to bring some youth questions in. Is the panel excited about that prospect? Let's bring in some questions. So can we have our first question from one of our international youth?
Hi, Dr. Ebadi. My name is Mia Henderson, and I'm a fourth-year student at the University of Colorado Boulder. My question for you today is, in what ways does the fight for human rights take place in the university setting, as Iran has some of the best higher education in the world? What has that looked like in the past and in today's fight? And how can university students across the globe stand in solidarity and fight with the students of Iran? Thank you.
خب خانم دکتر عبادی، من اسمم میا هندرسون، سال 4 هستم، در دانشگاه کالرادو درس میخونم و با توجه به اینکه میدونم دانشگاه‌های ایران دانشگاه‌های خیلی خوبی هستن و جوانایی که در ایران دانشگاه میرن خیلی مطلع هستن، میخوام در مورد مبارزه یا محافظت از حقوق بشر در دانشگاه ها از شما سوال بکنم. جوانای دانشگاهی چجوری میتونن در این مورد عمل بکنن به نظر شما؟
در ایران دانشجویان کلا با همدیگه متحد علیه حکومتن و مخصوصا در این جنبش خیلی خوب یک دست عمل کردن و مبارزه کردن و متاسفانه تعداد زیادی از اونها رو به همین دلیل محروم از تحصیل کردند و یه تعداد دیگری هم دستگیر شدند. اگر هدف برای این است که در خارج از ایران جوانان در دانشگاه‌های خارج از ایران چطور میتوانند به این نهضت ما کمک کنند، باید بگم که این بستگی داره به امکاناتی که دارید. اگر موسیقیدان هستید، یک آهنگ میتونه خیلی خوب انعکاس بده مشکلات مردم رو. اگر داستان نویسید، قلم، خبرنگارید، اطلاع رسانی، اگر فیلم میکر هستید از طریق فیلم. بنابراین برای کمک به ایران یا اصولا به هر کشور دیگری که داره با استبداد می جنگه، نسخه واحدی برای همه مردم دنیا وجود نداره. فقط میشه گفت از امکاناتتون حرکت کنید و مهمترین مسئله این است که بی تفاوت نباشید و خیال نکنید مثلا ایران به شما خیلی دوره، با شما کاری نداره. نه، به نظر من ستم مانند ویروسه. دیدید که ویروس کووید چجوری عملا ثابت کرد که جهان به هم دیگه ارتباط داره؟ ظلم و استبداد هم به همین صورت عمل میکنه. بی تفاوت نباشید به کشورهایی که فکر میکنید از نظر جغرافیایی از شما دورن.
So when we speak about the university students in Iran, we know that they were unified, that they fought greatly against the regime. However, many of them were arrested, and a number of them have been deprived of continuing their education, which is a punishment for the university students who had participated. But if we're talking about students all over the world, and how they can help the university students or the people of Iran in general, I would say do whatever you can to reflect what's going on in Iran. For example, if you're a filmmaker, make a film about the situation. If you're a journalist, write about it. If you're a writer, use your pen. If you're a musician, write a piece of music. If you can sing, sing about it. Bring your talents into it. Any opportunity that you have that you can use in order to show your solidarity. The message that I want to give you is don't be indifferent. That's what counts. What I'm saying, and I have been saying before, is that I compare dictatorships and autocracy to a virus. Remember when COVID happened? It wasn't only a virus in a specific part of the world. It was worldwide. It took all over. The same thing could happen with autocracy. The same thing with dictatorship. So don't be indifferent to it, but use your talent, use whatever you have in hand that can help us understand what's going on. And don't think that you're far away from Iran. Iran is a very far away country. No, it's not. I mean, the issues can be common. We do have commonalities that we can work on.
Thank you. So we're going to go to our next youth question from the Southeast.
Hey, Dr. Ebadi. My name is Justin from PeaceJam Southeast. And after watching your movie, I was wondering, is there a moment from your childhood or an encounter with a particular person that significantly impacted the way you think about what change is possible in the world? I appreciate your time today, and I thank you for all you've done for creating peace in today's world.
خب خانم دکتر عبادی، من بهتون سلام میکنم. من از جنوب شرقی امریکا هستم و از گروه پیس جم هستم و میخوام از شما سوال بکنم که آیا یک شخص یا یک واقعه خاصی بوده که باعث شده که شما به این نتیجه برسین که باید مبارزه بکنین، برای عدالت مبارزه بکنین، برای حقوق بشر مبارزه بکنین؟ آیا چیز خاصی در بچگی شما اتفاق افتاده؟
من باید بگم که دوران طفولیت من بسیار خوب بود. پدر و مادری داشتم خیلی مدرن، از نظر تفکر اینتלקتوئل بودن و اونا همدیگر رو عاشقانه دوست داشتن و من در این محیط بسیار آرام بزرگ شدم. اما احساس مبارزه با بی‌عدالتی رو من همیشه در زندگیم داشتم. اما وقتی که انقلاب اسلامی در سال 1979 اتفاق افتاد، من تازه یعنی بیشتر از بیش معتقد شدم که راه من چیه. قبلا از طریق قضاوت سعی می‌کردم به اجرای عدالت کمک کنم. وقتی که دیدم بعد از انقلاب اینقدر حقوق بشر لگدمال میشه، اون وقت گفتم حالا وظیفه من تمرکز روی حقوق بشره. در حقیقت آهنگ حرکت من رو انقلاب تندتر کرد، ولی من همواره در همین راستا بودم.
So what I want to tell you is that I had a very good childhood. I was born in a family. My parents loved each other deeply, and also they were intellectuals. It was a modern family, and I had a very calm childhood and was raised very well. But I always, even since childhood, concentrated on justice. When I was younger, of course, I became a judge in Iran after law school, and I always had this idea in mind that I was fighting for justice through my judgeship. But when the 1979 revolution occurred in Iran, I found out where my real path was. When I saw all the violations of human rights in Iran, I decided to fight for human rights. And I decided to change my path. So what I'm trying to tell you is that I was dancing to the music, but the revolution put me in a music which was more colorful, which was more active. And that's how I found my way. And I started working for human rights.
Thank you so much for answering that question. I'm going to move on to the third student question, and this one I'll ask that the panel offers their thoughts as well.
Hi, my name is Melina. I'm from California, and my question for you is what can we as youth activists do in our communities to better help the cause, aside from simply spreading the word?
من اسمم مولینا هستش، از کالیفرنیا هستم و منم میخوام به عنوان یه جوون از شما سوال بکنم که علاوه بر این که ما بیایم راجع به این موضوع سوال بکنیم، چجوری میتونیم به این نهضت کمکی بکنیم؟
همونطوری که گفتم بی تفاوت نباشید به اونچه که در سایر کشورها میگذره و برای کمک کردن از امکانات خودتون حرکت کنید. شما چه امکانی برای کمک به مردم دارید؟ آیا نویسنده اید، خبرنگارید، از قلم استفاده کنید، اهل موزیک هستید، فیلم، آهنگ، ترانه، اگر حتی میشه با رقصیدن کمک کرد و نشان داد که در یه جامعه چه میگذره. به عنوان مثال در کشور من رقص برای زنها ممنوعه. خب شما با رقص در حقیقت میتونید این ممنوعیت و این ستم رو در این قسمت فریاد بزنید. بنابراین از من نپرسید که چی کار میشه کرد، به امکانات خودتون نگاه کنید. من فقط توصیهم این است که بی تفاوت نباشید و خیال نکنید که ایران یا هر کشور دیگری به شما دوره. نه، اینطور نیست. کرونا نشون داد که جهان یک دهکده کوچکه، سرنوشت همه ما به هم وصله.
So my answer is, as I said before, is not to be indifferent. What I'm trying to say here is just do whatever you can. For example, think about dancing. In Iran, dancing is prohibited for women. So if you can dance, you can show through and by dancing that you support these women. That counts. And as I said, whatever you can do, if you can write a song, if you can sing, if you can dance, if you're a filmmaker, whatever you can do. I just want to remind everyone that the world is like a small village. And the example that I gave a little earlier was the coronavirus. It's a small village. We're all tied together. Don't think that Iran is far away or other countries are far away and don't matter. No, that's not the question. The issue is that we are like a small village, and what we do impacts the lives of all of the other people who are in this village.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So, panelists, just if you guys could weigh in, you don't have to speak too long, just briefly, just your thoughts, right? In terms of youth, from your different perspectives, what can people who care, whether they are young, old, or in anything in between, what can they do beyond just listening in today? What can they do beyond just sharing with others that they've heard this story? What can they do to become a part of this activism? What are the goals, or how can we brought this up a little bit earlier, how do we make sure that those of us who are coming from a different sort of lens, not impose our own sort of Western lens onto the work that we're doing? Dawn, when you were creating the film, how did you carry that balance of support without sort of taking over someone else's movement? Or Shade, as a professor, you work in the university space, what can you recommend for people who are professors who teach or students who are coming into classrooms? Rumi, from your perspective as someone who is a youth activist, a young person who's trying to do this work, how do you navigate these things, right? Like, what can youth do to be better supporters of this movement?
I will say that as a filmmaker, film is very powerful. Shirin Ebadi just mentioned that it is not permissible for women to dance. There are some university-aged young women who had a video where they showed them dancing, and it was they were punished severely for having made a TikTok video, right? So that's something that I think resonates. You were not even allowed to dance. You're not even allowed to take a headscarf off your head. And if you show that film and then maybe say Shirin Ebadi until we are free, and then do sign petitions, do letter writing campaigns. Amnesty International is always a really good resource. There's a lot of, if you just look at campaigns to support women protesters in Iran, Google it. Something will pop up. There's new petitions all the time. There's new letter writing campaigns all the time. And as Shade pointed out, if you happen to live in a country where your voice can be heard by your elected representatives, talk to them too and say, this is important to me. I know what's going on in Iran. I'm very concerned. What are you doing? You need to do more. So there's a lot that you can do. Just starting right where you are, organize some friends, start showing some films, get people excited, start taking action, petitions, letter writing campaigns. Just get started and start now.
Thank you, Shade.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Dawn and Dr. Ebadi said. One other way to strengthen this movement, which it's led by women, but it's also supported by men and other people from other intersecting identities, is to learn more about it, research, share information about the incredibly courageous women and men like Dr. Ebadi, who've given their lives for the most basic rights, for bodily autonomy and freedom of choice. Some of those names, and I'll just mention really just a few of them, are the recent case of Sepide Gholian, Nasrin Sotoudeh, Farhad Meisami, Narges Mohammadi, Tumaj Salehi, Niloufar Hamedi, Saman Yasin. And these are just some names that are related to the current movement, or some have been involved for a much longer period, like Nasrin Sotoudeh, who was also featured in Dr. Ebadi's documentary. I want to ask our friends to learn more about these names, say them, use hashtags, give their sacrifice strength by increasing visibility and shedding light on the inhumanity and brutality of the Islamic Republic and how courageously and creatively they're reacting to what is happening. Another way Dawn also pointed out is to put pressure on our public officials, if we live in democratic countries, to be more transparent, to stop supporting the Islamic Republic, and don't engage in deals that would give them legitimacy or cash, strengthening them to kill and weaken more of our people. No one is asking the international, or particularly the US, to interfere militarily or otherwise. At the end of the day, getting rid of the ugly patriarchy of the Islamic Republic is the job of the Iranian people, particularly in Iran. But will it be easy? Absolutely not. We have a long and painful path ahead of us. But if there is one group of people that is capable of winning such an unequal battle, it is the Iranian youth, and especially women. And there is tremendous wisdom and strength in this generation that builds on the shoulders of giants like Dr. Ebadi. And it will eventually win the day. But along this path, this movement will be far stronger, and there will be much less casualty if the international community and the youth in other countries supported it, and the international community and government stopped cooperating with the Islamic Republic and supported the people of Iran instead.
Thank you. Rumi?
Yeah, this is a brilliant question. And I have two things I'd like to offer. The first, going off of comments that were previously spoken, I think the youth, obviously I'm making a generalization, but a lot of young people today see their existence and actions in isolation, and perhaps this can be attributed to an individualistic mindset that is perpetuated through our culture and society in general, our world. But additionally, I urge people, especially the youth, with the amount of resources that we have arguably the most in human history right now. The access we have to the internet is any information at any given time. We have an ability and a duty to utilize that, but not to understand this as an isolated issue. There are a lot of preconceived notions about the Middle East, and specifically about Iran, and a lot of what's happening currently and has happened in the past in the Middle East and in Iranian history is playing into various confirmation biases about particular conflict-ridden societies, and instability. And I would urge people to truly understand this as a holistic issue and to find commonalities with the people on the ground, the Iranian people, to amplify their voices through whatever means possible. Social media, although it is difficult for individuals in Iran to use social media, it is an extremely prominent tool in this moment. And that is where I gain a lot of my perspective. The accounts that I follow, there are numerous human rights, Iranian human rights groups that are continuously propelling this information out into the world, and simply seeing the faces of the people, hearing their voices and their screams, their protests, their dances, as we talked about. Dawn brought up the TikTok video. Seeing real live people putting faces to ideas or maybe prejudices can really help, I think, to bridge the gap and to increase accountability and awareness. And I would also just offer briefly finding your connection, whether that be with the current fight against heteropatriarchy here in the United States or wherever you are worldwide, against the overturning of Roe versus Wade and abortion rights being taken away. But in whatever way you can, there are commonalities within Iranian society, and heteropatriarchy is something that is being fought in this moment staunchly. Although it is important to recognize there is slight difference, obviously, because of geographic location and history and culture. But it is a similar systemic set of ideals that we are fighting worldwide. So I would urge you to find what makes you angry or passionate, what drives you and propels your activism forward. Or if you don't consider yourself an activist, what propels you forward? Why do you get up in the morning? Finding a way to make this sustainable and also interesting to you, so that you are better able to have compassion and understanding for people who are fighting this fight in places that you might not fully understand or have a connection to.
Thank you so much for that answer, Rumi. Thank you for your brilliance. So we do have 2 more youth questions. So I'm going to ask that our tech team play both of the questions back to back rather than separately, so that we can put them into conversation with each other and end our section with youth questions. So Tech, if you could play the 4th and the 5th youth question back to back, please, for our panel.
Hello, I'm Cecile Brown of PeaceJam Ghana, first year student of the University of Ghana. Dr. Ebadi, you discussed the impact of your family on your politics. What do you and the panel think of the role of family in the formation of young political thoughts? How do I, as a young activist, engage my family in political change? Thank you for the opportunity and answering my question.
دکتر عبادی، من این خانوم جوان از غنا، کشور غنا تماس میگرفتم با شما و سوالش اینه که جوونا چطوری میتونن تغییر سیاسی به وجود بیارن.
Hi Dr. Ebadi, I'm Kaya. While I was watching your film and learning more about your life and the women's life freedom movement, honestly, I was astonished at all that transpired. It made me curious about the other women activists that you've collaborated with. I was wondering if you could tell us some of the young women in Iran that we should be listening to and amplifying. Thank you.
همینطور این خانم جوان که اسمش کایاست سوال میکرده از شما، میگه من این فیلمو که دیدم که چقدر خانوما و چقدر زنای جوان در ایران مبارزه میکنن. میخوام شما نظرتون رو راجع به این خانومای جوان به ما بدین، این خانومای جوان رو به ما معرفی بکنین.
در ایران بیش از 50% دانشجویان دانشگاه های ما دخترند. یعنی اصولا ایران یه چنین جامعه است که زنهای تحصیل کرده بسیار زیادی داره. این زنها استاد دانشگاه، پزشک، مهندس و مشاغل بالایی هم دارن، اما در این حال حقوقشون رو هم بسیار تضییع شده و حکومت قوانین تبعیض‌آمیزی وضع کرده. خب خیلی طبیعیه جامعه‌ای که اینقدر زن تحصیل کرده داره حاضر نیست این قوانین رو قبول بکنه و به همین دلیل زنها از اولین روزی که این حکومت به قدرت رسید مخالف این قوانین بودن، علیهش مبارزه میکردن. در اون اوائل احزاب سیاسی و مردها زیاد از زنات حمایت نمیکردن، برای اینکه میگفتن ما تازه انقلاب کردیم، بذارین همه چی درست بشه بعد حقوق شما رو هم میدیم. اما متوجه شدن که این کار درست نیست، برای اینکه خود این حکومت احزاب رو ممنوع کرد، کمونیستا رو تمام زندان کرد، تعدادشون رو کشت. هر کسی که کوچکترین انتقادی به حکومت داشت روانه زندان شد و به تدریج مردها فهمیدن که اشتباه کردن. بعضی از همون اول مانند زنان مبارزه میکردن و من همیشه گفتم پیروزی جنبش فمینیستی در ایران مقدمه دموکراسی در ایرانه. حقوق و دموکراسی از دروازه حقوق زن وارد ایران میشه. به همین دلیله که میبینیم در این جنبش فمینیستی مردها هم به اندازه زنها فعالیت میکنن، کشته شدن، زندان رفتن، چشمشون رو از دست دادن، اما هیچ کدام عقب نشینی نکردن، برای اینکه هیچ یک از خواسته هایی که مردم میخواستن بهش نرسیدن. حکومت جوابی جز گلوله و زندان نداره و این زنها که مبارز هستند یک نام دارن، نامشون ایرانه. به نام ایران مبارزه میکنن. زنان ایران رو به نام کشورشون بشناسید. نام مهم نیست. من ممکنه یک نامی داشته باشم، مثلا اسم من شیرینه، اما من مهم نیستم. مهم هدفه، مهم نام کشور منه، مهم وطن منه. نام من ایرانه.
So, in response to both questions, first, I want to tell you that over 50% of the university students in Iran are females. So this shows that women are very well educated in Iran. They go to universities, and we have doctors, we have professors, we have engineers. Women work at all levels. They even have positions at higher levels of government and the private sector. But the reason that their rights are being taken away from them is that from the beginning of the revolution, when the government started taking away rights gradually and little by little, men and the political parties did not support women. After a while, the government became more powerful, and they started fighting with the different parties that existed. For example, there was a communist party in Iran, and that party was dissolved, and many of the members of the communist party were killed. And then when other people took to the streets due to different demands that they had, many of them were arrested or even killed. So when the women's movement happened, and recently men decided that they should support women as well. I have always said that democracy will go to Iran based on the feminist movement, meaning it's the feminist movement that's going to bring democracy to Iran. And this is why at this time, men have joined, and men are supporting women, and men are fighting for the cause as well. But when you ask me to name names, I want to tell you that everyone who's fighting for democracy and human rights in Iran is doing it in the name of Iran. So think of the name Iran. For example, my name is Shirin. Yes, I've been named Shirin, but whatever I do and whatever I have done in the past is for my country, which is Iran. So think of my struggles are all as struggles for Iran. And don't go after individual names. Think about Iran. Anyone who's fighting for this cause is fighting for Iran.
Thank you so much for that response and for answering the youth questions. I want to thank all of the youth internationally from across the world. We had questions from Guatemala, Colorado, Ghana, the Southeast in the US. We've had questions all around the world come in for you, and these people were specifically chosen. So thank you for answering their questions, and thank you for the youth for submitting them. Thank you for this poignant thought that everything that we do in the name of a collective struggle. And rather than seeing ourselves as individual activists or individuals who are working towards a greater cause, in fact, we are the cause. We are better together, stronger together. And I'm so thankful to be here amongst these women who are so brilliant. So I want to ask the panel to give them an opportunity as we're getting ready to close to get your questions or comments. If you have something you want to speak directly to Dr. Ebadi, this is your chance as we're getting ready to close and before we move on to our closing remarks. I want to start first with Dawn. If you have a question or if you have just a comment that you want to give to Dr. Ebadi before we close, this is your opportunity. You're muted, Dawn.
So sorry. I just want to know, Dr. Ebadi, how are you doing personally? I mean, this has been such a crazy year, and you're working so hard. I know you're traveling so much, and I just want to know, how are you, and how are your spirits, and are you feeling hopeful?
خب خانم دکتر عبادی، من میدونم که امسال یه سال خیلی عجیب و غریب و اذیت کننده ای بوده. میخوام حال خود شما رو بپرسم. میدونم خیلی فعالی، میدونم مسافرت زیاد میکنی و میخوام بپرسم که چطوری تو این سالی که اینقدر پایین و بالا داشته.
خوبم تا زمانی که میتوانم برای کشورم فعالیت بکنم. خوبم.
I'm doing fine. Until I can work for my country, I'll be doing fine.
Okay, I'll pass it now to Shade, Dr. Shade Dashti, for questions and comments.
Just a comment that I'm beyond grateful to have been on this awesome panel and to share some thoughts. I continue to draw inspiration and energy from especially the work of Dr. Ebadi, and I look forward to continuing this work and to continuing to learn alongside these incredible women, especially Dr. Ebadi, until we are free.
من فقط میخوام یه نظر بدم. خیلی ممنونم از شما که اومدین. خیلی یاد گرفتم و میخوام که از همه میخوام که باز دنبال بکنن این موضوع رو و یاد بگیرن، بالاخص در مورد همین کتاب تا آزادی.
خیلی ممنونم. مرسی.
Thank you so much.
And then Rumi.
Sure, I have a question, but I want to be cognizant of time. And I think it might be a bit lengthy. So I wanted to just check in with you and make sure that, see if we had time for a question or if I should just offer some remarks.
If you feel that the question would require a long answer, then yes, if you know, a shorter question or remarks would be preferred.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so in that case, just thank you to everyone who's on the panel today, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all and learn from you all. Dr. Ebadi, thank you for continuing to be an incredible support of the Iranian people and continuing to influence the work that I do, the work that we do as a collective in moving this forward. And I know that your words and actions continue to have a deep impact. You know, from my conversations with those that I am in contact with in Iran, they are continually just so inspired and so grateful for what you've done and what you are continuing to do. So thank you very much.
منم میخوام به نوبه خودم تشکر بکنم. سوالی داشتم ولی چون وقت نیست نمیپرسم اونو، فقط میخوام از همه افرادی که تو این برنامه بودنم تشکر کنم. بلخص از شما میدونم من با افرادی در ایران در تماس هستم که همه اونا قدردان هستن و تشکر میکنن از اون چه که شما دارین انجام میدین برای ایران.
خواهش میکنم. منم خیلی ممنونم از همه کسانی که برای برپایی این جلسه و مکالمه زحمت کشیدن، از پنلیستای عزیز، از مجری عزیز، از دان، از خانم ارشادی مترجم، از همه ممنونم که تو این کمک کردیم و این جلسه برپا شد و به من فرصت دادید که از این طریق با شما و با شنوندگان و کسانی که این برنامه رو میبینن صحبت بکنم. ممنونم و آرزوی صلح و دموکراسی برای همه جهان، مخصوصا برای آمریکا و ایران دارم. هر دوتا احتیاج دارم.
So I want to specifically thank all of the people who put this program together, the moderator, our panel members, Dawn, and everyone else who made it possible for me to talk to your audience, to the people who are watching or who are listening. And I wish democracy and peace both for Iran and the United States. I think both countries need that.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you to each of our panelists. So I'm going to just wrap things up. I didn't give Dawn a chance to do a closing remark. So Dawn, do you have any closing remarks? You're muted.
Sorry. Watch the film and share the film. That's what I have to say. It's the single best way to bring people into this movement. And anything that you can do, gather your friends, hire a local theater, watch it together, watch party on internet, and grow the group of people who share this cause with you.
من تنها صحبتم اینه که این فیلم رو ببینید. از هر طریقی میتونید، هر جاهایی که نشونش میدن، حتی میتونید شیرش بکنین در اینجا. اینو ببینین تا اینکه ببینین که چه گذشته و چه خواهد.
Okay. So I want to say
ممنونم دان برای تمام زحماتی که طی این سالها برای پیس جم و بعد برای فیلم من کشیدی.
And I want to specifically thank Dawn for all the work that you've done for PeaceJam and also on my movie.
Yes. So thank you guys so much, all of you who are present today, for your participation in this panel. Dr. Ebadi, you are an amazing inspiration to all of us and to the world. As a woman, as an activist, you are unique, but you are someone who I see kind of like the heart of the movement, where the heart makes the body move, but without the body, the heart is not anything, right? They work together in this sort of balance. So thank you for being our heart today and for giving us the pump that we need to continue to moving forward. Despite whatever conflicts that we might encounter, we know that it's possible to overcome because you have overcame. You are an example to us. So as we wrap up this live stream discussion, I encourage all of you to reflect on your powerful messages that you shared with us today, and for the audience to take the opportunity to not let this go through one ear and not the other, but to take this and run with it. We ask you to create your reflections, to host screenings of this movie. We ask you to share online that you were a part of the discussion today, that you were listening in today. We ask you to tag us when you create anything. If you create a film, if you create a video, if you write a blog, share it with us. There's going to be opportunity to contact us at community. You can email me specifically at community@peacejam.org, whatever it is. But we want to thank all of our panelists and, of course, our amazing translator, Shirin Ebadi, today for being here. Please, as we have all our upcoming campaigns, keep in contact with us. And I want to give a special shout out at the end to Shirin Ebadi for your insights and for living a life so dedicated to justice and for the women of the world. To you all for being a part of this today. And I thank the audience one last time. That's it for today. Can we get a round of applause for our panelists and for Dr. Ebadi?
خیلی ممنون از مشارکتتون در این برنامه. شما مثل قلب این نهضت می‌کنید.
Thank you. So that's all, everyone. You guys have a great time. Have a great day. And our tech team will be able to put on our ending outro video. Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for joining us for our global live stream event. A shout out again to our panelists, Shade Dashti, Rumin Antanzi, Dawn Engle, and the woman of the hour, Shirin Ebadi, for joining us and giving us this amazingly deep conversation. If you haven't already seen the film and documentary Until We Are Free, we hope that today will inspire you to go and watch the film in its entirety. If you've seen it already and you want to host your screening of this film for your community, organization, school, or otherwise, we would love to support you. You can contact us directly at community@peacejam.org to make an appointment with me to help you in planning and hosting your own screening. Hosting your own community screening is not difficult, and it's the most effective way to get this message out. If you need any support, you can contact me directly at community@peacejam.org. Check out our website, billionacts.org, and look at the campaign for Until We Are Free. You will find various ways to share your voice and get involved. This includes writing a blog, creating a reflection video, or hosting your own screening. All of these things are options for you, and we have created all of the measures of support to help you. Follow along on our TikTok at PeaceJam Family, on our Instagrams and Facebook at PeaceJam Foundation at Billion Acts, and continue to be involved with the campaign by going to our website and checking out our campaign page. All of the information you need is there. Importantly, I implore you to share the information you've learned today with a friend or family member. Don't keep this that you've learned to yourself. Share it on your socials, on your stories, on your various social medias, or in text and video calls with your friends and family. Let them know that today you were impacted. Let them know about what you've learned about Iran and the activism that's happening there. Because as long as we are speaking and not silent, we will bring the change to the world that we are looking for. Together, we can amplify the voices of Iranian activists to create a more just world. We thank you again from PeaceJam Foundation, from Billion Acts, from Shirin Ebadi's Foundation, and from me, Senora Lynn Eduardo, your PeaceJam Film Liaison, for joining us today. Thank you for your presence and your commitment to making change possible. Until next time, remember, until we are all free, none of us are free. Bye.